Hi and welcome. My name is Max Perevik. This presentation will show you my idea of how we can use one of the tools within logical thinking process together with Scrum to make a plan a lot more visible so everyone understands what the goal is and where we're heading. First I will tell you a bit about the logical thinking process. We will then use one of the tools for planning the product backlog and the same tool for planning the sprint backlog. Elia M. Goldwatt is the author of a book named The Goal, which is a management novel, which I recommend you to read. The book is about the theory of constraint and is also utilizing many of the tools in the thinking process. Logical thinking process is about a system approach to complex problem solving. And in this toolbox we have the goal tree, we have the current reality tree, we have the future reality tree and pre-request tree and evaporation cloud. Goal tree is defining the future, your goal and the system boundaries. The current reality tree is adding on to the goal tree to visualize how your current reality looks like in relation to your goals. So you see and can identify what is not working in your current reality, and you can break them down into your root causes. So when you take your root causes, identify what you want to do instead, how to solve them. You can start building your future reality tree, which is then validating your ideas, and I can show that and visualize that it is actually giving the expected outcome that you meet the goal. Pre-request tree is to prove the plan. So you take your future reality tree and make a project plan out of it. And then the last tool is the evaporation cloud, which is a conflict resolution methodology that makes a win-win situation for both parties. On the right side here you see an objective and you see the needs. And around the needs we have the actions or the wants. So to meet an objective, the needs have to be fulfilled, and the want specifies how we want to do that. And here is the most frequent place for the conflict. So it can be different opinions, it can be limitations in systems. But anyway, this is where the conflict usually are, and that is how where we will look into how to solve it. But the important here is that the solution still fulfills the needs. So if you fulfill the needs, you can change the wants, but both of the parties are still accomplishing what they want to do. So, planning the product backlog. A Scrum project is about flexibility. We have a goal and a direction, but we don't know the exact route, how it looks like. So our plan has to be flexible and adopt knowledge during the way. We need to take in the customer influences and adjust our plan. So we need to continuously do the planning. We also have to make sure that the team understands the goal and the route, so we can engage them and also give the spirit to the team so they feel the urgency to meeting the goal. So all of this is about putting everyone into the same boat. So what is the goal? The goal is the most important thing you should define. It defines your future. That is where you're heading. So the goal is the ultimate purpose of your project. So to be successful and meeting the goal, you must define the key thing that has to happen just before the goal. That is your critical success factors. So an example is if my goal is I have bought a new car, my success factors is we must have selected the car we should buy and we must have paid the car. So the goal together with your critical success factors provides your project definition, your project outcome. To be able to define the goal, you also need to understand the goal scope. So with the goal scope, I mean the system for which the goal is for. The system can be you as a person for your personal goal. The system might be a service or department or sub-service. So what are your project scope? So you need to identify the limitation and the scope of your project. Let's have a look at the system. You find me here, sitting in my flat. You see my neighbors. They are quite noisy. So the system contains of three things. The things you can control, which is my apartment, the living, and the things you can influence, your neighbors in this case, and things around you. There are things that you can influence, but you can't control them. They actually are having their own will. And the last thing is the things you just have to accept, like the weather, or limitation in systems, or laws that you have to follow in your business. So when you create your goal, you need to know in which system you define the goal. So that is defining your boundaries. So focus on what you can control, and then you can add in things that you can influence. And you of course have to be aware of the things that you can't do anything about, that you have to accept. So the system outcome. So the goal is the end of your journey, and the critical success factors are a breakdown of the goal. They are the last thing that has to happen before the goal can be met. So goal and critical success factors define the system and its purpose. The goal together with the critical success factors provide the project definition. Here's an example. My goal is we have an apartment in Spain. I have identified three key critical success factors for this to work out and happen. The first is we have bought an apartment. Second is we can afford to have the apartment. And the third one is that our family likes to spend the vacation there now and in the future. When you build this, you should not have more than 3 to 5 critical success factors. If you have more, I'm pretty sure one of them are not the critical success factors. So look at the goal here and ask yourself, in order for this to happen, what also have to happen? So what are the key critical things that has to happen? Another example of this that is me and my partner can live on the income from our newly started company. We have defined 3 critical success factors. We need to provide competitive products, and our company manages in a good way, and we can take our salary that we can live on. When we have the goal and the critical success factors, we need to define our strategy and tactical decisions. They represent your way, your road, your decision of how you want to do this. So your tactical and strategical milestones. You should not have more than 2 layers. Sometimes you have 3, but I recommend 2 layers and not more than 5 necessary conditions, as I will call them in this documentation. You define this necessary condition or your strategy and tactical decisions based on asking yourself the same as we did before. In order to meet the critical success factor, I must have this item, this necessary condition. So a necessary condition is a strategy, so you can decide what it should contain. So let's look at mine. We have our critical success factors, and we have decided that for the competitive products, we will provide business management services. And for the critical success factor that we can take out salary that we can live on, we decided that our target customer group is company with 30 employees. We believe that they will be the best customers to provide us income for a good salary. We have also decided to have an administration is done properly to secure that we send in all needed documentation to the government and make sure that we invoice our customers in time and everything else to make the company profitable. And it's not enough with 3 strategical and tactical decisions. We need to have more. So I've broken it down into actually 3 layers here. Normally you only should have 2 layers, but sometimes you need 3 layers as other ways there will be too many necessary conditions in 1 layer. And it's better to group them and to make a more generic strategical description here. So this is what our company is intended to do. So we think that we will do employee management, general ledger, project management, invoice services. We also stated a bit about our platform. We have defined that the backend should be in PHP and a database in MySQL. Next phase is to define our actions. That is our stories. So I've broken down some of the strategical decision, our necessary conditions, into stories. When you do that, you look at your necessary condition and ask yourself, in order to provide project management, we must provide project planning, maintain project information. So we will take a deeper look at this necessary condition and the two stories in the further pictures. But it's important that when you break things down, look at what you need to fulfill this, and then look again, is there anything else that also has to happen? Because it's quite easy to miss out something when you do the planning. So the Scrum artifacts are your actions. So your backlog represents that here as stories, but they can also be bugs and epics and maintenance things for life cycling. So stories is things you have to do. So story is the last thing you have to do before the next story can be fulfilled. So all stories can be broken down into smaller stories. A story can also be clarified with precondition that defines your metrics. So if we look at the precondition is a way to state the requirement for approving a delivery of a story. So this is a key input to the Scrum team for what they have to provide to meet the expectation of this story, to make it accepted by the product owner. And there also is a way of doing a measurement. So one way of measuring things is by using a traffic light system. So that is a very easy way that is visible for everyone to directly see where are we in our delivery. So here you can see that we have one yellow story. So that means that something was not delivered. So if we expand up the preconditions here, we can see that two of the preconditions are green, but the third one is not green. So we can't provide one server in each data center. That might be due to that we can't afford it at the moment, or something else. But the traffic light is a nice visible way of quickly visualize the status of your project. We have talked about this before, but stories are the activities that has to happen to fulfill the necessary conditions and in the end the goal. And what is the last thing that has to happen before the current story can be done? So let's have a look at an example here. So the story is see a movie. So to see the movie, we have to buy the ticket to the movie, and we must have driven to the cinema where the movie will be running. And in order to buy a ticket to the movie, we must have money to buy the ticket, and we also have to have selected the movie that we will see. And in order to drive to the cinema, we need to know which movie that we shall see, so we drive to the correct cinema. So when you build them up, you ask yourself, in order to see the movie, I must buy a ticket to the movie and I must drive to the cinema. And always ask yourself, is there anything else that you also have to do to fulfill this and or execute this story? So remember, plan from top to bottom. in order to see a movie, I must buy a ticket and buy a ticket to the movie, and I must drive to the cinema. And when you execute it, you can read it from bottom to top by saying, if I do story, then I can do next story. And use metrics. That will help you know if you can approve a story to be done or not. And it's also helping you put in a traffic light system. So sometimes, like in the previous picture, it is okay that we only have a server in one data center and not in two as we wanted, and we can proceed with the next story. So it was not stopped, but it is yellow, so we have to go back and fix that later. But it might not be prioritized in the next sprint, for example. And don't do the team's work. So when you do this planning, don't break it down into tasks. Write stories and let the team break it down to the detailed things to be done. The important is that the plan is visual and readable and understandable for the team and also for the stakeholders. So you plan it from top to bottom, and you do that by asking yourself, in order to this to happen, this has to happen. And you do that the whole way down. And then use the traffic light coloring to visualize the status of your project. And you always execute your plan from bottom to the top. So start with the leaves in the end of your plan and then go up forward, and also take care of your dependencies. So the benefits with the goal tree is that it gives you a foundation. A goal tree and the critical success factors states the outcome, and it is clearly defining where you're heading. The necessary conditions define your strategy and tactical decisions. And the structure, the tree structure, is a very visible and easy to understand tool. The plan is your stories that is lined out and in the execution order. So always start from bottom and go up to the top. As the tree is so visible, it is easy to show this to the stakeholders, also explain it to the stakeholder by following it from top to bottom or from bottom to top, if you prefer that. But it's better to start from the top, because that explains the requirements that exist for an item to be able to be done. And that is good if you are asking for money or only have money for one part of the project and then want new funding, for example. And also good to do this exercise together with the Scrum team, so everyone understands what has to happen. And be aware of that is coming in changes. The customers want new things. What you had in your strategy might not be what the customers want, so you have to accept information from the customers and adjust your plan. And as the tool is so visible, it's very easy to see where the new requirements fits in and what has to be taken out if there is something. So let's look into the sprint planning. plan it carefully. So what you take from the product backlog has to be delivered. Do you have all resources for the stories? Have sources dependencies been handled, like deliveries from other teams, etc.? And what will a theme be for this sprint? That will state the goal. And why is that important? That is important because defining goal for your sprint, that helps you focus on the right things. So if you bring in 2 stories where one is critical to deliver, the theme or the goal for the sprint should represent the critical activities in your sprint, so everyone knows where the focus should be and not spend the time on not so important things. So if there is a problem with the delivery, make sure that you deliver the most important things. And break down your stories into tasks and estimate them in time. So we have our goal tree with a goal, critical success factors, our necessary conditions, which represent our strategy and tactical decisions. We have our stories here. So we take these 2 stories and we will use the necessary condition here as our goal for this sprint. So creating a sprint plan is all about breaking down the stories into tasks. And you do that as we have done before. You ask yourself, in order to have backends, we must do this story. So let's have a deeper look into it. So let's start with the first story. So in order to set up a backend server including a backup, we need to set up a HTTP support with the certificates, and we need to set up a backup and recovery procedures. In order to set up HTTPS support with certificates, we need to order HTTPS certificate, and we have to set up a web instance with a domain name. Every time you break down one of these tasks, ask yourself, is there anything else that has to be done? And also it is very important that each task is stated in a clear way, in an understandable and readable way, so you can read the tree from top to bottom. In the end, you will end up with the leaves here. They are the tasks that you will start executing. So you always execute your plan from bottom to top. And don't forget to define your sprint goal. So remember, plan from bottom to the plan from top to bottom. So in order to see the movie, I must buy a ticket to the movie and I must drive to the cinema. And when you execute from bottom to top, you can read the execution plan by reading, if I do task and I do task, then I can do next task. And put in the metrics. So if you need, you can use traffic light to visualize the progress. And we also have to estimate the work effort, the efficient time needed to do this, and define that in chunks of days. So a quarter of a day, half a day, 3/4 of a day, 1 day, 2 days, etc. So now we can actually line this out in our time simulation. in this case we have a 2 weeks sprint plan, and we line up the task here. So from left to right, that is our execution order. So the things that we will start with is on the left side, and so here we can see that we have estimated that on day 3 we will actually deliver the first story. And this is a good thing, as we then can communicate this to the product owner. And the product owner can also see this simulation, time simulation, and actually see how complex it has been. And also when you do this breakdown, you can escalate things to the product owner saying, this is more complex than we was thinking. So we don't believe that we can deliver everything in this sprint. So is there anything we should take off? Or it might be that you divide it into a sub-story, or you decide to leave out some of the less important things, for example. But this is a very good way, and you can also use the traffic light here and highlight things during you're doing your sprint. So this is it. This is what I was intended to present. So I hope you will try it out, and I hope you also will give me feedbacks if this was working for you, and if there is things you think should be improved in this way of working. So good luck, and thank you.